to everyone. We are here in person, but we are keeping our 6 feet social distancing from one another, so we may have to speak more loudly and clearly. But I'm very proud and happy that my fellow board members are here, that staff is here, and we will conduct the business of our school district. So we'll start with a roll call.
Mr. Boyer.
Here.
Mrs. Russell.
Here.
Mrs. Cattouli.
Here.
Mrs. Davidson. Here. And Mrs. Hill.
Here.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is community or staff participation. And there is no community or staff, the staff is here. There's no one that's put a card forward to speak. So we'll go, that was for closed session.
No, you're correct.
Okay. Anyway, we're now on to our Pledge of Allegiance, and I would like to ask Dr. Pulver, who has been our fearless leader these last several weeks, if he could lead us in our pledge to our nation.
Sure. Be my pleasure. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The important guests that we have in the audience, in case you are only seeing them from the back of the head if you're looking at this on television, is we have Dr. Frazier, we have Dr. Nyen and Tina D'Angelo, who is in the audience, and they're all very special to us because they're the reason the district runs as well as it does. So we are now on to our board president's report. When I became board president, I made a promise to myself that I would never just say a list of things because I don't think it's interesting, I don't think it's captivating, and I don't think it holds the interest. Last time when we had our meeting, I ended up listing a bunch of visual and performing art opportunities that we were going to have in the district before we closed down. So everybody's missed out on all those wonderful opportunities. And tonight I am going to read a list of names of people. And the reason why I decided I wanted to do this is that our district has done something that is so incredibly phenomenal that unless you were in the trenches actually doing the work, you don't realize what our district has accomplished. When we decided that we needed to close our schools, we also thought we don't want education and learning to stop. So we had to figure out some way to get an online learning platform up and running in every single classroom in our district, TK through 12. There are schools that normally would spend 1 to 2 years to get this in operation. And we started doing it under the guidance of Dr. Pulver before the decision was made by a few days of when we were going to have to close the schools. But basically, we have this group of people who I'm going to say their name out because I want everyone to remember it and when they see them to thank them. But they worked many 18, 20-hour days trying to get things up and going and then supporting staff so that our teachers who may not be familiar with the Google Classroom would be able to become comfortable and facile on it so that they'll be able to really reach out and teach their kids. So here's this list of fabulous people who deserve way more recognition than somebody saying their name out loud. But in educational services, our fearless leader in that department, Andrea Reed, Melissa Davis, Dan Bennett, Evan Gordon, Jill Kosies, Morgan Martin, Paul Chun. They're either directors or are teachers on special assignments, but they all work together to really get things going. So while you're trying to create a Google Classroom, you cannot leave the IT department out. You can work with content and things like that with your staff, but if you don't know how to manipulate it and use it and be able to be comfortable with it, it's not going to fly. So I'd like to thank the people in the IT department. John Sperados, Marlene Ludwig, Rob Martin, Jeremy Ortiz, Ramon Zavala, Armando Gomez, Sofia Dominguez, Della Cohen, Devin Workman, Jeremy Hurt, Robert Zelaya, Raymond Ziebert, and Alicia Seafree. So then we had the IT department and the Educational and Student Services department working together. How did we actually get it into the classrooms? Now I want to thank all of our principals and assistant principals who helped staff. Evelyn Garcia, Amy Vento, Gary Willems, Rick Larson, Ronnie Ellis, Wendy Wood, Amy Belsha, Todd Smith, Aaron Kaminsky, Alan Mendrin, Ryan Eastwright, Kara Vienna, Chris Velasic, Kenneth Lepore, Richard Smith, Jason Farver, Kiva Spiratos, David Mullenkamp, and Phil Bowen. These were all people who worked together to get their staff educated, trained, supported, so that we could start teaching our kids the Wednesday. We closed school Friday afternoon, and Wednesday morning we were open for education. And whenever Dr. Pulver is going to expound on everything that we have done for this, but when we were having emails and phone conversations going back from within the board and the administration, every time a board member came up with a what if, what about, can we do this? It was something that they had already thought about and come up with maybe plan A or plan B. But one of the things that is very close to my heart I want to bring up is that we have students who are on free and reduced lunch. So these students eat breakfast and lunch at the school. And if they're not there to eat breakfast and lunch, we're not secure, thinking that they're going to be getting nutritious breakfasts and lunches. So we continue to give out breakfast and lunch to our students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And that was done by the work from Terry Gardner, Greg Stratton, Cindy Guzman, Kevin Dennis, and other staff members that helped supported it. And I think that Dr. Pulver is going to actually say how many meals we've been giving out, because it's been an impressive amount. We need to support our students in their education. We also need to support families in the stress that this is putting on all of them. I am just so proud of everyone here in Los Alamitos. And I really should have read the list of all of our employees, but I think it's about, 1,600 people total, and that would have been even horrible for me to do. So that is the end of my report, but I just want all those people to know that they should be publicly recognized. They should be publicly thanked from a distance, and I am so happy and so proud that they're part of our district and we're able to do what we have done in this amount of time. So I will now turn it over to Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. My report today is a bit lengthy. I'd like to present from the podium. Test. Yeah, it's working. So thank you again, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. I'd like to really devote today's superintendent's report to give both the board, but really the public, an opportunity to see the plans that we have made to provide distance learning to our students during this period of school closure. I'd like to also add a little bit to some of the thank yous as well. Bob Ostman has been our TOSA with communication, and early on, even just getting our website with having a dedicated page with coronavirus update. I think we were one of the trailblazers that had that dedicated early on. And he really created that from home on a weekend and then has been updating it and has been really critical in helping us shape the message. And I think one of the common thank yous that I've received along the way, both from staff and from parents, are the messages that we've sent out, and the numerous messages, the way that the messages are framed with a sense of calm and some clearly defined plans. So I'd also like to make sure I thank Bob at that. And so what I'd like to share tonight is our distance learning plan. I could not be more proud of this district and really every single employee, certificated, classified. We could not do this work. We don't work in a vacuum. When we thought about our theme this year of being better together, I don't think we would have ever thought of what the reality we are currently in, but I think that really sums up our message and our ongoing message that we could not have gotten through this and got to where we are today, really without several people working together. And so just to give you a little bit of background, you might remember, all of you, we had an emergency board meeting the clicker wasn't on. So we held an emergency Board of Education meeting on Friday, March 13th, and at that time, The board passed the resolution, emergency resolution, giving me as a superintendent authority to make decisions, various emergency powers to close schools. At that time, the board did make the decision to close schools, and then any subsequent closures upon me. And to take any other necessary actions under emergencies. I think we're not used to this type of emergency. When we hear the word emergency, we typically, and our mind paradigm, our paradigm is really about fires, storms, tornadoes, earthquakes. And so this concept of a pandemic and a virus really is completely foreign to our frame of reference. And what we used to think of police and fire guiding us in situations like this, is a completely set of officials who are actually guiding us. We certainly, like every other district, struggled along the way in terms of when do you cancel an event? And so even prior to March 13th, earlier that week, we were making a decision to cancel our all-district choral concert, and that was the only thing. We still struggled. Should we still have the high school back-to-school night? We did. The very next day, things changed rapidly. By that time, we canceled our back-to-school nights, all of our after-school meetings, any other field trips, out-of-state travel, but we still were having school carry on, as every other district was as well. It was in that moment, I think, both myself, executive cabinet really kind of came together, and we knew we had to come up with some plans. I think at that moment we realized schools would be closed. It was a matter of when, not if. And we were hoping we would have gotten through next week. So Andrea, our assistant superintendent of ed services, really pulled all of her TOSAs together midweek and really trying to create an online platform that we could. We had every hope that we would be able to get to push out training teachers after school on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of that week. We already sent information out to principals. I think it was that early foresight that really saved us and allowed us to get kind of ahead of other districts simply because we were able to train teachers. So come Friday, every district in Orange County as well as LA made decisions to close starting Monday the 16th. We continued to just power through. Our goal at that time was to train teachers on Monday. On Google Classroom and on the learning platform that we've already been creating. We shared with all of you kind of a skeleton view at our emergency board meeting of some of the plans we already put into place prior to see that we really were ready. Our principals, our assistant principals came in on Sunday. I think between ed services, exec cabinet, we probably worked 18, 20-hour days over the weekend to make sure that we could deliver the training to our teachers on Monday. And I just cannot think again the amount of work that our principals and assistant principals, they came in on a Sunday for over 3 hours. Our TOSAs came in prior to that to really support the training, and they were leading some of the training the next day. We're fortunate for that because later Monday, we were able to train all of our teachers Monday morning, and our teachers were amazing. You might think that sometimes this is new learning. Some don't have the technology expertise, as Mrs. Catulli mentioned. This is something a district would normally plan an entire year, rolling out, developing, training teachers, informing parents, informing students, maybe doing even a pilot here or there. And we had less than 3 days to get this up and off and running. And so I cannot thank our teachers. Every single one was dedicated. They were passionate. They really saw that their mission here is to really, I think, our overarching vocation, if you would, about really serving the public. And as much as it was a stretch for some, they were 100% in, and they were committed. So when we sometimes talk about all in all the time in terms of LoSal, I think it's really that. It's they're all in on behalf of our students and our families. So we did the training Monday morning. It was a 2 parts, principal-led a portion. We had members from cabinet and our TOSAs went out to different sites. And we led the Google Classroom training and the Learning Connection platform. And come Monday afternoon, I think it was certainly before 2 o'clock, President Trump then gave the guidance of no mass gatherings larger than 10. So many districts that I know had similar plans as us. but they were going to use Monday and Tuesday to kind of come together as a leadership group and roll out to staff Wednesday or Thursday. And once the new guidance came of no more than 10, that put that out the window. So we had to power through and get through Monday, and I'm so glad that we were able to. And that really made us give the ability to be able to push out content to our families on Wednesday. And so I will just share a little bit more of the history on this slide, that our initial decision was to close our schools for 2 weeks, and that would have been through March 27th. We have made the extension through the end of spring break, and that may have to continue, but my recommendation is, and what I'm hearing from staff and from our parents, is they really have appreciated our more measured approach and being very thoughtful about when we make decisions, but also giving them time to plan ahead. So even when we said we were going to be closed for 2 weeks, we did share that it's possible through spring break. And you're now starting to see some districts make some closures now through the beginning of May. At this point, I'm not making that recommendation. We still have 3+ weeks before that occurs, and a lot could change. Mm-hmm. And I would rather have us show grace to our employees and hope to our students that they may be able to be returning. And so I think we can plan for the worst, but me sending another email out to families about a closure being extended, I think isn't something we should even contemplate this week. We have several days, and I also don't believe in surprising our public and our parents. I think they all are well aware, but many have really appreciated the thoughtfulness behind that, because one of the things we all want is we want to have something for end of the year activities for our students. I've shared with some people in passing that I don't care even if we only get 1 day or 2 days back, we're bringing our kids back. We want to see our kids, our teachers miss our kids, our administrators, our classified staff really miss seeing the kids. I will share that our teachers have been amazing. One of the things we really shared with staff at the training on Monday, and principals did a great job echoing that as well, is that during these times, our parents and our students are going to remember far more how we treat them, how we communicate to them, how we send them kind messages and loving messages and warm messages. And I really reminded teachers that they're one of the most respected professions out there. And the more that our parents hear from them about how much we care and how much we miss them will mean far more than any content that we push out to kids. And I think that's proven true. We've had teachers write chalk messages on sidewalks to students. We've had teachers deliver messages to the students' houses and just drop them off on the doorstep. Students who live no matter where they live. We've had people making video connections. Our arts and our teachers are looking at a myriad of ways to connect kids. I was talking to Dave Barker. He's our math teacher at the high school. He also sponsors a club, improv. And he is meeting with our improv students and creating a Google Classroom Google Meets to really kind of set up an improv tournament. And so we're not just doing the academics. We're continuing. When we say as a district, we are the 4A's, academics, athletics, activities, and the arts, we're really still trying to find ways to connect kids even during this time of social isolation. And that couldn't be possible without just really a complete buy-in of our staff and rallying behind the situation we're in and providing the best opportunities for our students. And so I'll share a little bit about what I was really pleased with. The governor came out with his executive order. The board, you had your board meeting March 13th. We shared with you all of our plans already. And probably about 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock that night, the governor signed this executive order. For me, the refreshing thing was everything in his executive order were things that we already had built into our plan. And one of the very first thing that he called for is to continuing to develop high-quality educational opportunities to students to the extent feasible. Well, that was part of our plan. Our plan was to use Google Classroom to provide distance learning. So we were ahead of the game even prior to that executive order. The next thing, part of his plan, was to ensure that we're providing meals to students, particularly who are in need, and kind of using it similar to the summer food service program. We already had that set up as well, that we knew that we were going to provide grab-and-go meal services for students ages 2 through 18. And here's the great thing that I want the public to know. You do not have to be on free and reduced lunch to get these meals. The only requirement, it's not our requirement, and I'll talk about it later, but the only requirement is that the child has to be in the car. If the federal government waives that requirement, which we hope is possible, then we'll waive that. But that is not our requirement. It is put upon us. But it does not. You do not have to qualify for free and reduced lunch. And then the governor really has, and continues to, and so do the other county and public health officials, really expect us to be able to provide supervision for students or childcare. If you think about this, this is a critical time for our families. Also, there are key segments of the community that they don't have the option of staying home. They must go to work. Our first responders, our healthcare workers, our grocery workers, bankers, gas station attendants, public transit. And so that's many of our families, and they don't have options. And so we have continued to the extent that some people weren't really pleased to see that we were going to be offering childcare, but we are offering childcare from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. for our regularly enrolled students. This is something that our families were not anticipating. So that daily rate it can start to become expensive for these families. So thank you to the board. The board allowed us to drop the rates by 20% to make this a bit more attainable. And not only are we dropping the rates, we're having to increase staffing because we're making sure that we're following the guidelines of social distancing. And I'll share that. I have a whole slide on childcare. And thankfully, the governor made it very clear that he is going to continue to fund education. We're not going to be held against for the attendance laws. We will not have to extend the school year, and we're going to continue to pay our regular employees. So all of our certificated and classified staff, our administrators, our intervention teachers will be paid, whether they're working remotely or whether they're assigned to still come in as essential employees. What came out later was just last week is the governor also announced, and we did get the federal waiver approved, that all state testing, so our CASP and our LPAC, have been suspended. And then the College Board is a different entity, and they make decisions regarding whether or not the advanced placement program will continue to be tested. So we got an update from the College Board. We've been monitoring that. Melissa Miller has been monitoring that closely. And they sent out an update Thursday and really more detailed on Friday. AP College Board, they surveyed AP students to see if they even want to still take the exam. Over 90% of them said they did. Across the nation. They didn't survey just LaSalle, obviously. And so their determination, they're going to find a way to make the test be available at home. It'll be 45 minutes, probably a one essay question, and content up through early March. So almost everything that we've already taught students. And so they're expecting to give us more guidance on what that exam might look like. I think it's either April 1st or April 3rd. I don't quite remember exactly off the top of my head. And we've been providing those updates to our AP students and our AP teachers. Yes?
Yeah, Andrew, I thanks for the back to me when I asked that for a question. We've always given like sophomores the ACT and the PSAT, and we pay for those. Has that happened, or have we missed that deadline, or are they going to be able to get those in or not?
Right now, all the SAT tests have been canceled at this point.
They take the PSAT.
We did take the PSAT earlier in the year.
Right? Do they take it early?
Literally, we had SAT test on our campus Saturday, March 14th, the day we made the decision, March 13th. And already they had canceled those when the guidance the day before was no mass gatherings of 250 or more. So what I would say is that our parents, particularly our seniors, are most concerned about whether or not they'll have an opportunity for end of the year activities. I still want to be optimistic that we'll be able to have a promotion ceremony for our seniors. And if we can, we will. So we have not made any alternative plans yet. I don't think we should bury our heads in the sand. I think at some point after we've gotten through a couple of weeks that I'd rather have contingency plan A, contingency plan B, should that occur. But our hope is to be able to have our kids back. We just don't know even if they let kids back, is there still going to be a ban on no gatherings greater than, we've had different numbers, 50, 10, 50, 250, depends what number you want to select. But we did hear different information, even just some people think that you heard the president last night said it's possible before spring break, or people returning after the holiday in April. So we'll see that, and that's why I think we should be more thoughtful and wait to see as we go on. So in terms of our distance learning plan, what we've created, and this is where we were spending the bulk of the weekend trying to make sure these two sites were up and running, is we really kind of created two digital hubs of information. One, what we're calling the Learning Connection, which is a website designed to direct families to our content through Google Classroom, and then another site that's open just to our certificated, really to staff, teachers, et cetera, and that's our Teaching Connections, and that's where we have hosted a myriad of resources, staff training, and we continue to update that. In fact, Ed Services is rolling out some trainings to teachers on how to upload and try Flipgrid and a few other video processes to use for instruction. And so that two different websites are available, one for families and the other for teachers on the back end. And so on our website, you can see very clearly, you'll also see this button on every single school's website as well. I push this out to all of our families. It's a large button. They go to the Learning Connection portal. And as soon as you click on that, you get sent to this page. So the first slides of that, really, in terms of the Learning Connection, you'll see on my left. That would be your left still, I think. All of our schools are there. So if your kid is going to Hopkinton Elementary, you're going to click on Hopkinton, and then you'll start to see it populate by first grade teachers, kindergarten teachers, et cetera. And then with high school, it will actually be by periods, by department. And then on the Teaching Connection side, you can see where we've hosted all of our guides, all of our how-tos, all the documents we provided teachers in the training, and ongoing documents will be uploaded there. So as you get into Learning Connection, again, just a reminder, it's for families, schools, and resources. And then the Teaching Connection connects our teachers to various resources that they can drag and drop and put into Google Classroom as they need, or even just tutorials. So as you go into the Learning Connection, these are the first bullets that you'll see. And then once you click on them, you'll get into more resources. We have the school closure resources. We have family resources, special education, and then the coronavirus update that just continues to be updated. I want to just share a little bit of information. When we made the decision on Friday, March 13th to close schools for 2 weeks, there were less than 10 cases in Orange County of positive tests. Now, remind you that we weren't testing people incredibly at that time. And there were no communal transmissions. And when we spoke to the doctors, we asked them, well, when does your level of concern change? Because originally they kept saying keep schools open, and they said when you get communal transmissions. So as of this afternoon, Orange County has 152 cases and 45 communal transmissions, and they update that regularly. Still, if you look at the total population of Orange County, but you can see it certainly has grown exponentially. So as you click into the school resources page, then the school closures, we thought of different things. If some of it at the elementary level, parents need to print the packets and they don't have access to a printer, what do you do? Here, email your principal, we'll provide packet pickups. And so our elementary teachers and principals are still providing that even though they're remote. How do you get access to a Chromebook or to a digital device? We ensured, so on Tuesday, before content was delivered, we offered Chromebooks to any of our students who don't have digital access at home. And anybody we also offered, if they did not have internet at home, Spectrum has been a great partner. So parents, if they are within the Spectrum network, had access to free Spectrum. When Bob helped me communicate that out, this is the level of detail that Bob has. He actually called Spectrum just to make sure it actually worked, and it was legit before we sent this post out to our parents. And then John Speratos, the week prior before us, this is all of our pre-planning. We anticipated this. We ordered 100 through Verizon mobile Wi-Fi hotspots to be able to get internet access for our students at home. Because, again, we did that early. We got all 100 were delivered on Saturday, I think Friday or Saturday here at the district office. And some districts were still waiting to receive them because they made the order on Monday. So just a lot of our pre-planning the week before has just paid dividends on behalf of our students and our staff. Mrs. Hill.
Andrew, do you have an idea of how many Chromebooks that we passed out?
I don't have the exact number. I would say that we were surprised by some of our schools. So probably 60 or more at elementary, and LAE probably even a little bit more. But I would say probably close to at least 600 or so. It's probably a low estimate. Maybe not, but we can get that number for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Yep. In terms of the hotspots, I know at the time we didn't give all 100, so we probably were at about just shy of 80. And we made those available for teachers as well. Some teachers don't have the internet at home, and so there were a few staff members who asked for a mobile hotspot as well. So, but I wanted to make sure people also saw, when we talk about not only the 4As, but continuing to find ways, as when you're looking in pandemics or other emergency situations, this is a stressful time, and people sometimes don't know how to react. So our mental health counselors, our psychologists have been finding ways to connect with kids. They really worked on putting up these resources. So when you click in on the mental health resources, you first will see all of our mental health employees, counselors, psychologists, and you can email them. And then if you go to some of the other, I wanted to just show you, I loved a lot of the links on the social, we put in my categories. And just the social emotional learning had some great link resources for our families to be able to do. And then if you clicked on the academic resources, that just gives a whole myriad. Scholastic has made almost their entire library open free during this time. PBS, online learning, Newsela. There's just a myriad of different things. We even found stuff for PE, for dance, for music, etc. And so there's a lot of resources within there. Obviously, Desmos for math and our ST math, etc. So our platform, really, our classroom communication is really in two formats. Many of our, I would say 4th, 5th, and above classroom teachers, many were proficient and have already used Google Classroom, but not all. If you were an arts elective teacher, if you were a foreign language teacher, and even some English or social studies, they might not have used it, but many had. That wasn't as new for 4 or 5, really brand new for K1, 2, 3. Think of even TK. A lot of this is needing to use their GoLoSal account. Well, TK, transitional kindergarten, we don't give them a LoSal email, so we had to figure out some workarounds around there, and that's where Dan has really, and Andre have been really masterful. The one that we had not tried before is Google Meet. And so Google Meet is kind of like, think of it as a digital FaceTime, if you would. You might have heard it called Google Hangouts. It's really kind of the same thing. And that's really the platform that we are using to host virtual office hours. Teachers are recording lessons. They might even do a little mini lesson, record that and upload that to Google Classroom, and all of that. So that was the second half of the training. We kind of devoted the training in 2 parts, Google Classroom and Google Meet, and I'm really pleased with that. I think many are now coming to the concept of having some of these virtual office hours. Some of our staff are also looking at Zoom. Zoom is very easy to use as well. In some ways has a little bit more capabilities. we were concerned initially about pushing Zoom out because if students are using our Chromebooks, we didn't push. You have to download a very simple download, but you have to download it first, and our Chromebooks wouldn't have had that. So we wanted to make sure whatever platform we were using, our students already had access to. Although our IT staff is wonderful, they're already finding ways to try to push it out remotely, even on a kid's network at home. So we're finding a few different ways to connect with kids. And I was reading Mr. Willems, our principal at LAE, his message at home on over the weekend, and saying, our teachers are working more than the hour. This is just the virtual hour. So I want to make it really clear, our teachers are probably working more hours than they were prior in some ways. We just wanted to be able to, we were concerned about bandwidth, about making sure that having set times so that if you're a student and you might have multiple periods, I have an English, I have math, and I have science, and if we had the same set time for every teacher, they might only get 10 minutes to be able to meet with each teacher. So we wanted to space that out a little bit more so that you can see our virtual office hours are there. And the one thing we also wanted to protect is the hour in which we are handing out free meals, which is from 11:30 to 12:30. So there are no virtual hours from 11:30 to 12:30, so that families can be have the space to go and pick up the meals should they want. Mrs. Davidson.
So this 1 hour of office time, if you're a high school teacher, are they finding that that's enough when they have 5 classes of, so they may have over 100 students? Are they needing to open it up further?
I think many of our teachers are opening up further. In fact, we didn't tell parents that we were going to start this until this week, Monday. We had several teachers push it out day one on Wednesday, March 18th. Many of our teachers are also doing it more just for, just 2 of you need some help. Let me come in through Google Meet and I'll work with you, these 2 students. So the hour itself is really the devoted time that your teacher is going to be available. But again, many of our teachers are opening it up and providing all sorts of different ways. I was talking to a teacher today. I was down handing out lunches at McGaw. She's a McGaw teacher, happens to live right there. She's a kindergarten teacher, Andrea Hess, and she said all of her parents communicate to her via her text. So she's responding to text messages a ton into the early evening, et cetera. So it's not just this, and that's really what I wanted to share. Is this teachers aren't available for just an hour; they're available way more hours to our families. This is just the dedicated time that we wanted to make sure we had the bandwidth to be able to make those accommodations for our families, and. This is where you probably will keep hearing me say this, but I was just so impressed with our teachers. We weren't sure when we were planning this. We've never done Google Meet or Zoom. And if we were going to get any pushback, none. Every single person has embraced the challenge that we're in, and they really see their role to this community. So I just could not be, I walked away from one of the trainings literally in tears, driving from one school site to the high school, and then I was driving over to Rossmore because I was also leading training myself, and just overwhelmed by our staff. Ooh, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
So really, really moving. Additionally, I, again, am really thankful that the board really supported this concept of childcare, even at times when we were getting some pushback from individuals. Understandably, people are concerned about the health and safety, and the question was, if schools are closed, how can you provide childcare for families? Doesn't that send a different message? And my message back is no. The fact that schools are closed, we can really do a lot of social distancing. We can spread, if we had 50 people requiring childcare, we could spread that out over 5, 6 rooms, 7 rooms if we needed, because our schools are closed. We made sure we lowered our number of students to meet the 10. So there's only 8 students in a room at a time, and then with the staff member or 2. So that there's less than 10. We ensure that we are social distancing, so those students, what really the guidelines are is to make sure they don't commingle. So those 10 should not commingle with another classroom on that campus throughout that entire day. We don't let them commingle. They have separate lunches. They have separate play breaks. They're still trying to have social distancing the best you can with a kindergartner and a first grader when they're out playing. But our extended daycare staff are working really hard to make that possible. And Here's what I love. The governor has doubled down on this, and he has said if you don't provide childcare, then the district should be open to allowing pop-up childcare clinics to occur on your campus. Well, I'd much rather have us do it than have some outside agency, because we can control that and control the safety environment much more. And so this is where I'm really thankful. And our families who have that have been very appreciative.
Do they get lunch service as well?
They do. We automatically just give them the meal service. And so our numbers, I gave you a handout just to give you some numbers on our childcare. We started off with 51 students on the first Wednesday of the week, and it died down towards that first week, and then it's creeping back up again. I think as people are starting to see that these school closures are going to last longer than 2 weeks, because we've now already extended it to spring break, it's creeped back up. So as of today, we had 34 students. We've been offering it at 3 sites. We think at some point, and we're probably darn close, where we could consolidate that and make it at 1 site rather than having 3 site locations. Just will help us with our staffing as we're trying to take a look at that.
Andrew?
Yes.
Are the, say, elementary school kids in the extended daycare, are they doing any of their online learning there?
They are. All of our extended daycare programs have already had Chrome carts, so that if we're working with kids after school, they're using the virtual hours as they need, and they're getting some of the work product done there as well. Yep. They're washing their hands multiple times during the day. We made sure they're in classrooms, for the most part, that have access to sinks, et cetera. And so the next thing I just wanted to, and I've shared a little bit about it, is about our free grab-and-go meal service. We started that on Wednesday, March 18th, and it continues going on. We started off with 4 locations. We had it at Los Alamitos Elementary, Weaver, McGaw, and Los Alamitos High School. And we found that the high school is so close to LAE, we were getting a much larger turnout at LAE and a little bit smaller at the high school, that we just consolidated that as well. Because the more sites you have, you also have to have more staff to be able to serve those. And we're also trying to be cognizant, same thing with childcare, et cetera. What's the best to try to keep as many staff members home, but also to have staff that are essential to be working, et cetera. And so, on Monday, we were pleased to not only offer, the first 3 days for the meals, we only offered lunch. And starting Monday of this week, we've been offering 2 meals. So we offer lunch for today and breakfast for tomorrow. So when they now pick up a meal, they're really getting 2 meals. And they do not have to live in our district. They do not have to attend schools. You can be in a private school that's within this. Really, this is where any school within Orange County, if it's closer for you to go pick up your free lunch in Anaheim, you can pick up in Anaheim, et cetera. And so we've been serving we started off about 340 meals to now almost 500, about 466 today was one of our highest meals. Actually, today was our highest meal, 466. I was at I've tried to make it my mission to go to one of the sites almost every day. I think I've only missed one. It's the highlight of my day to connect with our students and our families. And certainly today, McGaw said their numbers were up. And so I say 466, but now you want to double that, because it's breakfast and lunch, which is really nice. And then lastly, just want to really thank our entire staff. Our community has been nothing but supportive. We'll continue to figure out ways to how to provide additional supports under the guidelines of IDEA with students with special needs. And so Grace and Rocky and her department are really working hard on that, trying to keep people informed the best that we can, and helping them provide support services there as well. So that's also hasn't fallen off. But I think that's probably what every district is struggling with right now, because some of those services are hard to provide when a school district is closed. So some we will be responsible for making up some of the compensatory services, perhaps in the summer. Like we have done in the past, we've offered speech services, et cetera, in the summer. So we'll continue to monitor all of that.
I was just wanted to comment about Lace doing some
thank
things
you.
for after school kinds of things. I've even viewed some of the things they were doing. It's pretty cute.
It is. Thank you for sharing that. I forgot to mention that in my report. I certainly pushed that out to our parents. But Leif also really saw an opportunity to serve this community. And so every single day, Monday through Friday, they are uploading a video around 2:30 p.m. on YouTube. And it's really just arts and crafts or different activities that you can do with things you already have in your home, because we know access to getting to the grocery store and finding some of these things aren't the most ideal at this time. And so Leif has just been a great champion to continue to be partners and find ways to support our kids. And I'm really pleased with that as well. So thank you.
I wanted to mention another thing. I saw, I don't know, with Facebook or Twitter or one of those, our board member, Blake Ravello, is doing kind of get your spirits up for it does it
Yeah.
every day.
Yep, our staff have been doing that. Our parents, I saw a parent write a chalk on her chalk that said, "Love spreads much faster than of any virus," and wrote it on chalk in front of her house for kids as they're walking by. They just really are. We're finding a lot of ways that we can still stay connected, even though we have to have some social distance. Our principals had staff meetings already. They're doing them virtually. We're still trying to get some other things ironed out with the high school. So this afternoon, Mrs. Reed met with some of the online committee, because they're just good they're just good people to kind of bounce some ideas off of before we meet maybe with the department chairs. And they really have appreciated us still trying to find ways to include them in some of the, I don't want to say decisions, but planning and thought process, and how would we go about unfolding this. So I had a meeting on Monday, a virtual meeting with PTA, and Mrs. Catulli also joined in. We probably had about 17 PTA individuals, and it was open to all just to kind of jump in onto Zoom. And so that was really good. Gave them a condensed version of this report to all of them. So I apologize, it's a really long report, but this, I think, is important for our community to really see how we are moving forward and how we will continue to move forward during this time while our schools are closed. This really is unprecedented times. I don't know any in our district history that we've ever had to close schools, let alone now this will be 4 weeks plus a week of spring break, 5 minimum total.
I just want to say I know many people in other districts, whether they're professionals in those districts or whether they're students in those districts, and nobody has done what you guys have done. I've gotten several texts that have said, "Oh, what great leadership," and I'm like, "It's all the staff, and it's all you, Dr. Pulver." It is being what you said about preparing and being prepared to do that, and not saying we're going to sit back on our laurels and try to figure this out later, that our students and our families need this right away. I just want to applaud you for that, and all of staff. It's amazing. We truly are the leading district when it comes to this. Thank you very, very much.
I've really heard that from teachers themselves. So some of them have kids, and I'm not going to talk about another district, but they have kids. Their own personal kids are in another district, and they're seeing. It makes them proud. They really do feel like they're part of an elite district again, and I don't think that they ever didn't think that, but I think it just reminds them of that aspect. And I will say there are no right calls here. There are judgment calls in the moment. There are no right or wrong, and every district is trying to navigate the best way that they can. But there was pressure even Sunday evening, because Sunday evening when we trained our principals, and the day before we were trying to train all of our teachers on Google Classroom, that was the night again when there was another executive or press by Governor Gavin Newsom that really made people question whether or not we could even hold teachers in a room for training. And we just powered through. We did so thoughtfully. I probably have not talked to, we have great relationships with our associations, but over that weekend, myself, Joe, Nancy, spent I talked with Stacy Schmitz, the LAEA president, probably several times over the weekend. She was hearing certain things and then gave that information to us, and we responded to try to make changes to our planning. We broke up the meeting at the high school into multiple meetings instead of all staff together so that they wouldn't have to be there. I'm sorry, so the Sunday evening was right when they said anybody over 65 or anybody with a chronic health care, chronic disease, must not or should not report to work on a Sunday night at like 6 o'clock at night with no notice. And so, but our staff were amazing. They really were.
Yeah. Did you want to get Marlis?
I just wanted to say thank you, because whenever you start something new like this, if you're a teacher in a classroom, the whole thought of developing the curriculum, the means of communication, the way to interact with the students and meet their needs and be able to respond to what each individual student needed could be absolutely overwhelming. And so to step into this and have you already have developed this incredible plan, this whole umbrella with steps and answers to everybody's questions, had to make it so much easier for teachers to want to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Unbelievable.
And that's how we started off. We said there's going to be bumps. We know for sure that we didn't think of everything we're going to encounter, that is just going to be our new normal. And our staff have really rolled with it as well. And the content we're delivering probably this week and next week was certainly going to probably be better than the content for the first couple of days. So our staff their learning curve is steep, and they are sticking to it.
I just want to make a comment that I had California School Boards Association send me many emails over this whole thing too, like with ACTS, I'm sure you got a ton. And one of the things, they sent out a questionnaire, and they just wanted to know real quickly what we had done in our district. So I real quickly probably wrote 2 pages of all the work that we have done in our district and what we have up and running and how we keep 10 kids here and no more. And the executive director of CSBA emailed me back personally, and he basically said, "How did you pull this off?" And I said, because we started working before we closed the schools. We have incredible leaders. We have committed staff, supportive parents. And I said, and everyone's willingness to be nimble.
Yep.
Because you have to be able to do this and then make changes to what like you were saying, I teach this way, now I'm going to teach this way. I'm in charge of daycare, and this is what I do with my kids. Well, we can't touch one another. We can't be at the same desk. So so everyone is being flexible, is being creative and committed to what is best for our kids. And it's like when I first opened my report and I said, I am so proud to be a part of this phenomenal district. And so I appreciate all the wonderful things you guys have done to make me look good. So. As
you were sharing that, there's another name that we have to really mention, Yolanda Mortensen, who, and all of her extended daycare supervisors. The amount of hours that Yolanda has put in, coming in early, staying late, to really try to make this work, and how do we align our extended daycare employees, has been amazing. She worked over the whole weekend as well. When I said we had ed services, Yolanda has been doing that as well. It really is a partnership of everyone coming together, and that's why I think that the better together. Who knew that we would really have this really become our reality? But it is certainly ringing true.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Any other comments, questions?
No, I just I was contemplating, why are we so much better? As I've talked to parents and talked to neighbors, and the feedback has been phenomenal and they're talking to their friends in other districts and what's happening. I always have an adage that people don't plan to fail, and organizations don't plan to fail; they just fail to plan. And one thing about this board that I'm really proud of is we've made a huge investment in professional education to our staff.
Professional development
and professional development has been so key in the trips to the Silicon Valley. And sometimes I wonder, why are we spending this money to go to Stanford? Why are we spending money to go up to go see Google or going to Apple? But now we see why. Because by teaching some, they can then help others. And it's been a huge commitment cost-wise for the board, a huge investment, but an investment that has paid off. Yeah. And it's allowed us to do the things we're doing. And the collaboration in our associations and our teachers are amazing. Right. And there's no way to learn, but here it is, to do it. So those that weren't completely ready, that have embraced it, and those that have come around them to help them. And I think that's where I'm proudest to see as a whole organization. It's the LoSal way.
And I really think we are experts at professional development, whether and within our own house. We're using our own TOSAs, et cetera. And they were really insurmountable and really critical in doing a lot of the heavy lifting to be able to provide this training for staff. And they continue. Each of them is kind of a point person for each school so that we can kind of divide and conquer to help navigate through this. So.
Okay, is that all? Thank you very much. As a regular watcher of our school board, you would realize that we should have been having a student board report, but we told Blake to stay home and not come here and to take care of himself. So we're going to miss his delightful report. We are now going to go into a public hearing. So to do that, I'm going to gavel out of our regular meeting, gavel into our public hearing. Our public hearing is on the preliminary environmental assessment, P, for the multi-story STEM building project at the Los Alamitos High School. The purpose of this hearing is if anyone in the public would like to make a comment about our environmental report, our preliminary environmental assessment. Seeing no one, I will now gavel out of our public hearing and back into our regular board meeting. I get to play the gavel tonight. So we're on to our consent items. Is there a pull?
Madam President, I'd like to pull item 6C, which is the annual Gala Affairs of the Heart for Precious Life. Which I said 6C, right?
Yeah, it is 6C.
6C. So that has obviously been rescheduled, so we're just pulling it. Thank you.
Okay, and we will just table that because it is not going to take place right now. Okay, then I will look for a motion to approve consent 6A through D. A through D, and then A through B, and then D through N. Thank you, Tina.
So moved.
I'll second.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries 5-0. We're now on to action item. We have our first action item is the adoption of a resolution to approve a lease-back agreement with Erickson Hall Construction Company for Phase 2 of the Los Alamitos High School multi-story STEM building project. And Dr. Pulver, would you like to speak to this?
I would. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is our preliminary guaranteed maximum price for the actual construction of the multi-story building. It's not, we're going to be taking this in 2 steps. We'll be taking our final guaranteed maximum price at our April board meeting, but we wanted to bring the initial one to you so that we could start having them work on construction starting as soon as tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we think the economy has changed a little bit in just a few short weeks. And so we're pleased that this number has come in under what you previously anticipated. The current one is just shy of one, so $49 million for the construction portion of it. And earlier it was all the way up to near 53. We think it could go lower. It won't go higher than that come April. But some of the other bids that are coming in, if there's more wiggle room, we're going to be firm negotiators to be able to get the price to go down a bit more. But this way we can have Erickson Hall really begin the construction starting this week.
Okay. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes, please. Thank you. So one of the things that you said was some of the changes that we are going to make, and I don't have the vernacular that you used, but engineering, I think. Value engineering. So what are some of those things that we originally looked at that now are going to be value engineered?
So a lot of all of the value engineering does not change the structure, the ability, the integrity of the building, the purpose of the buildings, et cetera. But I'll probably say one of the biggest ones is instead of using brick for a big portion of it, we would use a brick veneer. So aesthetically, it'll look just like brick, but it's obviously much cheaper to install there. Some of the pictures that had some of this metal, I don't know if I'd call them railings, they're really pretty thick metal on the front. Using different material that'll look, maybe it's tile or other types of material that will give the same look, but it's not as expensive. And then we're going to continually look at, I use the Costco model. I think Costco brands are great. And so even in terms of whether it be door locks, whether it be certain things with technology, using the Kirkland brand rather than the Tide, et cetera. So things along those lines. But the stairs are still there.
Okay.
All of that integrity piece is still part of it.
So still the design that we've seen, there may be some quality changes, and I don't mean quality in a negative, necessarily in a negative standpoint, but just what might have been suggested when they first gave that to us. We've gone in and taken a deeper look at it and said we can get the same look for a lesser dollar.
Correct.
Okay. And so, but the idea of the brick and the glass and the stairs and all of that main part is staying the same.
That is correct.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, this is a roll call.
Mrs. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Boyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Cattouli?
Aye.
Mrs. Davidson? And Mrs. Hill?
Aye.
Okay. Our next item is a resolution, and this is a resolution from the preliminary environmental assessment for the Los Alamitos High School multi-story STEM building project.
Yes, so as part of the construction, I think we're all very familiar with the CEQA rules that we have to follow, and so this report will do that for us for the multi-story building, so we are ready to go tomorrow.
Okay. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board? Okay, I just want to say, more LaSalle getting ready to get going as soon as we can on everything. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Russell? Aye. Mr. Boyer?
Aye.
Mrs. Cattouli?
Aye.
Mrs. Davidson? And Mrs. Hill?
Aye.
Okay, now we're on to our acceptance of donations. Did I spit? Oh, of course. You know what? That's my favorite thing
We better
to skip.
pay the bills.
Yeah. Okay, the approval of our warrants. Warrants is like the checkbook of the school district, and it's always multi-pages. Diana, 42?
42.
42.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's fun reading. I suggest getting up and walking around your sofa a couple of times while reading it, because that's what I do. May I have a motion for acceptance of the warrants?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? If we do have questions, we submit them, and they are answered to the board members. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now to the donations. We spend the money, and then we thank people for giving us some. We have donations this month, which actually really kind of surprised me, because I was thinking with our school closing and with everyone being so focused on health, which they should be, but we still had some donations coming in. So I would like to say thank you to all of our very generous people who made the donations. We have a year-to-date of $490,990.35. May I have a motion to accept the donations?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We now have our classified and certificated personnel report. We usually do it as one. And Dr. Fraser, would you like to speak to it?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. I'm just bringing forward the classified and certificated personnel reports as presented.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion for both reports as one?
I'll move that we accept both reports.
Second.
Okay, are there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I'm not going to beat Mrs. Russell's record for the shortest board meeting, and it's not my fault. It's Dr. Pulver's fault. But now we're on to communication. And so, Mrs. Russell, would you like to start?
Well, not much going on, but we did have a SELPA board meeting, and we distanced ourselves. We had one person that called in on the phone, and she was part of the meeting. And we passed a resolution very similar to the resolution that we passed to allow Dr. Levine to have the power to do, whatever needs to be done in terms of, not going to school. Of course, our biggest worry was delivering the services as it is here. As Dr. Pulver mentioned, there's always having the summer school, but to be quite frank, we're going to expect lawsuits. I mean, because the services you know, you're talking about speech, you're talking about special ed, which has, you know, a lot
Physical
of special
therapy,
services. So,
occupation, yeah.
it's going to be a really difficult one. That's going to be our big bridge to cross.
Yeah.
But that's basically all that, you know, happened during this time, other than, you know, watching people. I saw a funny one. This southern woman out in her driveway scraping off her son's honor roll, our honor thing from the school. It was a joke.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
He's no honor student. You know, and all these parents are having their, you know, deja vu moments. And you know, and here's the thing. They're all praising teachers and say, you need to be paying them a whole lot more.
Yeah.
Because they're getting the understanding what it's like.
To do
Okay,
it.
that's it.
Okay. Mr. Boyer.
No, I just want, I've driven around the district to see that things are still going on and driven by the sites, and thankful that we are taking advantage of it as best we can with this time. And I'm really proud of our staff. Thank you for, you know, we've got parents and employees here, so I know you've got both ends going, so you're getting a firsthand look at things, and I'm just thankful. It seems like our divine providence seems to always happen to our district that, you know, we are going out to do our lease spec on a 3-story building, and we're going to get the benefit of a down cycle hopefully here, and also a chance to do some investing at a time when, you know, it makes sense. Everything's on sale. So I'm glad that we're certain things have shining in our right direction. So we'll get that. This too will pass, and I really do want to say thank you to our teachers and to our staff that are here doing what they're doing, because these are interesting times.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Davidson.
Well, it was very limited. I'm really thankful that I got to do the one thing that I really wanted to do the day after our last board meeting. I got to work in Liz Edwards' 7th grade class and teach each core on Fahrenheit 451, and it was just so wonderful to be back in the classroom. It was just such a blessing to be with the kids. And then the only other thing that I've done is work with some of the teachers on 8th grade teachers on curriculum, and so different role. I get to go back a little bit, and that's been fun. Otherwise, I'm learning how to be peaceful. It's not easy. Sit still and walk. Thank you.
Yeah. Mrs. Hill.
Thank you. Well, Mrs. Davidson, we did go to high school open house before we closed.
You did?
We did. And it was a little eerie that night. There were not, I've been at, now granted, it was a while ago, but back, our open house at the high school used to be just packed, and it was very eerie and kind of a vision into things to come. So I just also wanted, I love that Mrs. Russell brought up what LAIF TV is doing and what LAIF is doing, and that it just shows that our foundation is so aligned with our district in the sense is that it wants to come up and be at that higher level immediately as well. And I think that one of the things that it does give, it also helps give routine. And I think that it's really important these days to keep that routine. And so having things consistent for children, for all of us. I know that my gym has gone to virtual workouts at 8 o'clock every morning, and it still makes you get up and do those things. And I think it's really, really important that we keep those routines and we find those things in the day to help our children with that. I wanted to read 2 things. I don't know if you had seen the letter to seniors from Mr. Vlasic, and it was just heartbreaking, but also just really heartwarming. And just really quickly, he says, "I'm brokenhearted that your senior year was abruptly interrupted with this school closure. With each day as principal, I've witnessed leadership, brilliance, and a capacity to succeed within the classroom and in your areas of interest. And even though we haven't been together We've only been together since August. The type is very tiny. The class of 2020 will always have a very near and dear place to me in my heart. And then he goes on saying that we really are trying to not put the cart before the horse and hoping that they'll have their opportunities to celebrate. And it says, it's just an empty set of buildings with no life. You guys are the lifeblood of LaSalle. Look forward to seeing you all soon. And I just thought that was really amazing that he put that out there. And then there's been things on Nextdoor all over the place, just thanking LaSalle schools for how quickly they implemented online learning, and that it's been a lifesaver because it's a virtual class where children interact and their teachers are online. It's a challenging time for all, but this has made it so much easier for us parents. So as I said again, Dr. Pulver, if there's one thing that this board can say that we've done, it was hire you.
Yeah.
And that you have an extraordinary staff and that you are incredible at coming together and finding unique solutions. So I just want to say thank you and just tell everybody, find a routine. It's a different routine, but find that routine and stick to it, and we will all get through this.
Okay, I want to start by saying to Mrs. Russell, I'm so sorry that the Seal Beach Lions Teacher of the Year was canceled. She was in, for everyone's notes. Yeah, but she was in charge of organizing it. And so, but I know that you were working hard on it. And it's also one of my favorite celebrations to go to because every school has a Teacher of the Year, and we get to like see the whole family, and it's great. Yeah. Yeah. And I also had an ROP meeting before we closed schools and before ROP closed itself also. And I found out at our ROP meeting that one of our instructional aides in our preschool, Diana Brandt, is the North Orange County Regional Occupation Program's Teacher of the Year. So I was very happy and that we were able to celebrate one of our own as being recognized in ROP. And then the only other thing I did is I was on the same virtual PTA council meeting, and I think it was good for the people who were able to attend. They were very thankful that they could ask questions. I think they just liked hearing support. They were also giving each other like parenting tips and PTA tips, and because this is new for everyone. We have broken ground educationally in our district. And then we have our parents who are now having their children at home all day long, and they're not doing the afternoon activities, and they're not on their sports team, and they still have all that energy, and you can't even take them to the grocery store with you. So it's been a real, this is a very interesting time. We will come out better people because of it. I believe we have all risen to the challenges. And it's like I said in my president's report, I am so proud to be a very small part of what has gone on in this district and how we have taken the challenge, and we have made the best lemonade probably in the country with what we were handed. So we are going to go into closed session, and so I'm now going to close the open session of our board.